Long ago, before the rivers had names and before the birds learned to sing, there was a quiet kingdom deep in the heart of the Emerald Forest. The kingdom was called Nzimi, and it was ruled not by kings or chiefs, but by wisdom. Wisdom passed down through the mouths of old women, the true keepers of the land. Now, the people of Nzimi lived in harmony, and the women were known far and wide for their unmatched cleverness. They cooked, healed, traded, and ran the affairs of the village while the men hunted, traveled, and sometimes forgot their way home. You see, back in those days, many of the men of Nzimi would often go on long trips, saying they were hunting or visiting distant markets. But deep down, everyone knew some of them wandered off to chase temptations, drink, dance, and the laughter of strange women in far-off villages. This troubled the women of Nzimi. Their husbands would leave for days, sometimes weeks, and return with heavy hearts, empty pockets, and spirits full of shame. This continued for some time until everything changed. In the village lived a woman named Nola, graceful and sharp-eyed, with laughter like a stream flowing over smooth stones. She was a healer's apprentice, known for her knowledge of herbs, roots, and potions. Nola lived a quiet life until the day she met Oba, a tall stranger with sun-darkened skin, broad shoulders, and a mysterious glint in his eye. Oba had wandered into the village with only a flute and a bundle of belongings. He played his flute by the riverbanks, and soon the whole village knew of the man whose music made the moon seem to pause. Nola was drawn to him like bees to honey. Their love blossomed quickly, and they were soon married under the full moon, with drums beating and the whole village dancing. At first, Oba was everything Nola could dream of loving, helpful, always home before sunset. But over time, something began to change. Oba grew restless. He would return home late, smelling of foreign perfumes and firewood from distant fires. He no longer played his flute by the river or brought Nola wildflowers from the forest. He said he was helping traders, exploring nearby towns. But Nola's heart told her otherwise. She cried under the baobab tree one night, praying to the spirits of the ancestors. "If only he would stay," she whispered. "If only he would remember where he belongs." That's when an old woman appeared. Mama Koni, the silent herb keeper who had lived deep in the forest for as long as anyone could remember. No one ever saw her speak, but that night, her voice was clear as water. If you want your husband's heart to remember its home, teach his body to miss it first. Mama Koni gave Nola 2 small bottles, one filled with a faintly bitter liquid, the other sweet as wild honey. A drop in the morning, one in the evening. The body will weaken away from you, but the soul will crave you more deeply. Do not fear, this is not death, but a lesson. Nola hesitated, but her heart ached too much. So the next morning, she prepared Oba's millet porridge, as usual, but this time, she added a tiny drop of the bitter bottle. Oba kissed her cheek and left as usual. But strange things began to happen to Oba after a day away from home. His body began to ache like 100 stones lay upon his shoulders. His mind grew cloudy and his heart heavy. By the second day away from home, he started vomiting and grew short of breath. He felt a deep sadness he could not explain, as if his soul missed something he had forgotten. And the further away he stayed from home, the symptoms became even worse. That night, when he returned, pale and coughing, Nola gave him soup with a drop from the sweet bottle. Within minutes, his color returned. He looked at her, confused but grateful, and said, "I feel better when I'm near you." Days turned to weeks. Each time Oba wandered too far, he returned sick. Each time he came home, he felt new again. Soon, he stopped leaving entirely. He began carving wooden animals for the children and playing his flute by the fire once more. The village women noticed. "Why is Oba always home?" they whispered. "Why does he smile so often now?" And so, the village women went to Nola, one by one. Juma, whose husband had taken a second wife in another town. Ama, whose man returned only when he was broke. And Fari, whose husband no longer spoke to her kindly. Nola, with a knowing smile, invited them into her hut. She taught them what Mama Koni had taught her. She also explained to the women what happens when a man takes the potion. Strange things would begin to happen. His body would ache like 100 stones lay upon his shoulders. His mind would grow cloudy, his heart heavy. Some men began vomiting, others grew short of breath. Many felt a deep sadness they could not explain as if their soul missed something they had forgotten. And the further away they stayed, the worse it became. No priest, no healer, no traveling medicine man could find the cause. They beat drums, shake bones, and chant spells, but nothing worked. Only when the man finally returned home and drank his wife's evening brew did the pain vanish. The women were all intrigued and amazed as they left Nola's hut, and they promised to come back with their testimonies. Not all of the women used the potions, but many did. And soon, a strange thing began to happen in Nzimi. Every morning, the married women of Nzimi would wake before the rooster's call. They'd grind a bitter leaf found deep in the forest, mix it with river herbs, and add a drop of it into their husband's morning porridge or tea. Not enough to kill, not even enough to harm, just enough to make the body remember it was there. Then, in the evening, after the sun dipped low and the sky wore orange robes, the women would serve their men a different brew sweet, with honey and crushed roots. This was the antidote. As long as the man returned home on time, he would never notice a thing. He would eat, smile, and rest peacefully. But if he stayed away for more than a day or two, he began to feel the effects. Men who once drifted like leaves in the wind began returning home before dusk. They brought gifts, sang songs, even helped with firewood. The village transformed.
Now, there lived a man named Okoro. He was very proud and stubborn. He did not believe in women's wisdom. He laughed at the other men and said, "You are bewitched," he said. "You are led by the nose like cattle." One day, Okoro left Nzimi, vowing not to return until he had explored all the lands beyond the mountains. His wife, Nala, watched him go, but said nothing. She simply made him his morning brew, as always. Days passed, then weeks. Okoro began to feel sick first, a dull ache in his back, then fevers, and finally, deep sadness. He couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep. His vision blurred, and his heart raced like a frightened antelope. Desperate and shivering, he stumbled back to Nzimi after many moons. Nala welcomed him with calm eyes. She handed him the evening brew. Okoro drank. Within minutes, he sat upright, his eyes wide with wonder. "What was that?" he cried. Nala smiled. "It is what you forgot: your home, your heart, and your truth." From that day on, Okoro never left Nzimi again. Soon the men of Nzimi village stopped wandering. They came home early. They began helping with evening chores. They sat and talked to their wives. They listened to their children's stories, and Nzimi blossomed. Travelers from other villages heard about this mysterious place where marriages were strong, homes were peaceful, and men never strayed far. They came to learn, to ask the secret, but no one could tell them. The women simply served tea and smiled with knowing eyes. The story of Nzimi spread across the lands like the scent of rain on dry soil. Some called it witchcraft, others called it wisdom, but all agreed it worked. The women passed the recipe down from mother to daughter, warning them only to use it when truly needed. Not as punishment, but as protection. Not to harm, but to remind. And though the world has changed, and cities have grown, and towers have touched the clouds, they say that somewhere, in some hidden village, the women still remember the brew. And some say, even now, there are men who feel unwell when they are away from home too long. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.